tell you something. That was a team win. Yes, sir. All 3 phases. Yes, sir. It took all 3 phases to win that game. And man, let me just tell you this. Just imagine when we clean up these penalties. You guys understand where we're going, right? Some people might think takeaways are lucky. They are not lucky. Come on now. You earn those things every single week, and we got a trend going right now. A three-piece. Good, better, bad. Never let it rest. Good gets better. You better get better. Bears on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Boy, that just seemed a little too rehearsed for my liking, but that's okay. That's okay. They can celebrate however they want. What, did it not? Bill Belichick ever have a rehearsed cheer like that in the locker room in New England?
No, I mean, it was definitely very youth football kind of. It was kind of youth football, but it worked. I liked it.
You know, I do disagree with one of the things he said. Takeaways can be lucky. You know when they're lucky? They're lucky when the ball's wet and it pops right through Jaden Daniels' hands. And just as I felt like the Commanders are going to win this game, Sims and I disagreed on one game last week. It was that game. I'm going to go one up on him because that's all I care about. Nobody else does, but I do. And the ball squirts out, and that's that. And the Bears drive down and win the game on a walk-off field goal by Jake Moody, who had gone from being kicked out of San Francisco to welcome with open arms in Chicago. There was the first mistake of the night. Now, that was created. That was Jaquan Brisker getting back, reading the eyes, getting across, getting to the ball, intercepting the pass that would have been a touchdown to Deebo Samuel. So, yeah, just too many miscues last night. But, you know, you knock the ball out, that's one thing. You pick off a pass, that's another. But the last one was just pure luck of a wet ball night for the Bears. But they hung in there. Anytime, you know, you have the better of the play and the momentum goes against you, it's so hard to get the momentum back and take the win away. And they did that. I got to give them credit for that.
But do you give credit for the team that better handles the conditions? Like in New England, we used to say it's raining for both teams. So I do think a little bit of that. What I didn't, I won't say disagreed or didn't like, but what I get worried is when, like Ben Johnson said, imagine when we get these penalties fixed. I don't know, are you? Like are you going to get the penalties fixed? Because I think that's a thing. I think we always see when teams have penalties or whatever, it's like, man, once they get those fixed, how do you get those fixed, right? They talked about the Jets penalty and they brought referees in. Like, there's a difference. Like, when you're in practice, you know a penalty doesn't hurt your team. It's practice. Like, as much as you're going to try to mentally lock in and not do it, it's still practice. Like, you need to go and play games without penalties. And again, I disagreed a little bit with the tackle that they said the left tackle was too far in the backfield and he wasn't on the line of scrimmage on the touchdown to Odunze. It's always tough because the TV angle we get is not straight down the line like the referee, the official's looking at. But no matter what, it got called. It's a flag. So I think you can't just assume, I think, as a coach that you're going to fix these things and there's going to be games where you don't have any penalties or you only have 2 penalties. Like, that has to be harped on, but it has to be harped on within the game. You have to actually go do it. You got to go do it, or you got to go and you have to be kind of off the top rope with it of, like I talked about, maybe it was last week or 2 weeks ago, of taping guys' hands so they don't hold and doing all of these things that makes it so hard on guys in practice that then it gets done. Because like when I saw Jaden Daniels drop that ball, all I could think about is when we had rain in the forecast for Sunday of Belichick walking around with the water bottle. And as the center's going to snap the ball, he's drenching the ball with water. He's taking the top off the water bottle, dumping the whole bottle on the ball. Or it's these balls that they like souped up with like silicone and oil. And we would do fumbling drills and have the backs hold those balls that like were, I mean, you had to take your gloves off. It would ruin your gloves. All of these kind of over-the-top type of things to do in a practice to try to prepare guys, because then when you do it, guys are like, this sucks, I hate this, but it's forcing you to do and go above and beyond to secure the ball or to make sure you have it, that now when you get in the game situation, you've been so focused on like this hyper focus to make sure, because this ball's so ridiculously, wet or whatever, that now just your normal handles the situation and handles the condition. So I hope they're doing something like that, not just hoping it gets fixed.
It's just smart preparation. Tony Dungy tells the story of Super Bowl 41 in Miami, and Peyton Manning, armchair meteorologist, constantly harping on him about it's going to rain. We need to practice with wet balls. And coach is like, well, I know how it is in South Florida. It rains and it stops. And Peyton, it happens all the time. And he kept going and he kept going. And finally, Dungy said, we better do this. And they did. And they were ready for it. It rained the whole game. So you're right. That's just part of good coaching, good preparation, anticipation of all the things that can go wrong and keeping it from happening. And then, yeah, the Bears didn't fumble the ball on that last drive when they had a chance to take it. The Commanders did when they, on their last drive, had a chance to ice it. Speaking of penalties, the crew last night, led by referee Alex Moore, they had called the most through 5 weeks, and called another 14 accepted penalties last night, 9 on the Bears for 84 yards. And a lot of that is just luck. I mean, you're never going to have a perfect game. And if you do, the final score is maybe 63-10. And it's just one game. Whether you win by 1 point, as they've done each of their last two, by the identical score of 25-24 over the Raiders, a game they shouldn't have won. And then last night, a game they shouldn't have won. I mean, the only impressive win they had was against the Cowboys. And again, we don't know how impressed to be by a win over the Cowboys. So, but wins are wins, and they're stacking wins, and they're building momentum, and they're getting themselves removed from those first 2 weeks of the season that did not go well. The blown opportunity on a Monday night against the Vikings, and then the embarrassment when Ben Johnson went back to Detroit. That's in the rearview mirror, and they're moving in the right direction. And they got a little bit of revenge. I mean, it was twofold. It was the Bears getting a little revenge for that Hail Mary debacle last year that doomed their season, and Ben Johnson's tenure with the Lions ended in a thud against Dan Quinn and the Commanders when Washington went into Ford Field and didn't just upset, just obliterated the Lions and ended their special season.
Yeah, no doubt. I even forgot about that connection with Washington ending their season. And again, what I really enjoyed about Chicago was you come out, because Washington turns the ball over, you kind of get a break as Washington was driving and Bresser gets that interception. But then, like, you only get field goals. So it's not like you come out and you get 2 touchdowns and you're like, man, we're really doing it. They just kept going. They kept fighting. They kept plugging along. At different times, it just felt like when that touchdown got called back and then they didn't score, it was just like, that's going to come back and bite them. And then Washington has another good drive and they score a touchdown. You're like, well, this is just setting up for, Chicago. Yeah, they hung around. They play well, but Washington's going to get the upper hand. And a credit to them, a credit to continuing. And what I loved about Ben Johnson, keep running the ball. Like, a lot of times we see these teams that won't keep doing it. We know he'll do it because of his time in Detroit. But Swift, to go out there and carry the ball, some of the hits he was taking, protecting the ball was huge in those elements. And he did that. And I always remember hearing football coaches say that. When the conditions are bad and you're a running back and you show me that you'll handle the ball, that's what I want to do. I want to give you the ball. I want to be safe and not have to drop back and throw. And I think having Swift, and I'll add, being able to also throw Monangai in there, I got to give some love of Rutgers guy and give him a few carries. Make sure that you don't just keep forcing the ball. And I thought at one point when they were, I think it was a 2nd and maybe 15 or 2nd and 20, and they have Zacchaeus on a crossing route and he drops the ball. And Troy Aikman was like, if he catches that, he has room to run. Then he catches the next one on 3rd down, but doesn't pick up enough for the 1st down. Late in the game, I thought that was the dagger. I thought that was the play that finally was going to catch up to Chicago. They had a few plays in there that it was just like, man, all right, we line up off sides on a play. DJ Moore lines up off sides on a first down. You have the penalty. You had these different things show up. And I'm like, this is what we're going to – I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, we're going to come back and say Chicago could have won this game. But too many of these kind of self-inflicted wounds, and they overcame that again. And I think as corny as you thought that locker room kind of segment and bite was, I think it shows that those guys really believe in Ben Johnson. When you have a saying that, like I do with my flag football, my kindergarten and first grade, and we have this saying that we say – when you do that with professionals and they're yelling it and they're all in, you're like, this team's buying in. I think that was a little bit of everybody's concern of like Ben Johnson is mad scientist. How will he relate to the guys? And I thought that locker room showed that he is relating and is working in Chicago.
And I think that's the key when you have a new coach who's doing things in a different way. You have players who were there before. You need to get something early to get them to buy in, and then it can kind of snowball from there. Here's Johnson from after the game on pulling off the close victory in Washington.
I think it says a lot about our locker room right now. They're not just believing, but now they're starting to understand that, man, if this thing's close in the fourth quarter, then someone's going to step up and make a play for us. And we had a number of guys here in this fourth quarter that did that. And so I think these wins sometimes can go a longer way for your program than those blowouts do. So it was good to see.
Yeah, it's that confidence that when you get to, as Jason Garrett would call it, nut cutting time, somebody's going to cut the nuts. Or you're not going to get your own nuts cut. I'm not sure what the right way that skews, Devin. But that gives you confidence when you get in that setting the next time, especially if you're going against a team that has not delivered in a scenario like that. It begins to take on a life of its own. And I'm sure you've been on a football field where you've either had supreme confidence late in a game, or you've been going against a team where you're like, oh no, here it comes. And that's real. That's one of those things that transcends X's and O's and any and all analytics that any math major may come up with to try to turn a human sport into something that is not.
Yeah, and you said it. You just mentioned you got to get some of those guys that were already there to buy in. What better way? Remember, this is a team, like we talked about, lost on the Hail Mary, but also Thanksgiving. They're playing against Detroit last year. They don't really handle the clock situation the way that they should. So as players on that team, you vividly remember those moments. So now all of a sudden you get in these games and it's close down the stretch and you're executing and your play calls are right. And you're like, man, you're all in. And I always think back to like different guys that would come into New England and it would be like this kind of aura. Well, Bill Belichick's this way, but it wouldn't take much time for Bill to design something or talk about a situation and then it show up in the game and that player walk away and be like, holy, I've never heard this before. Whenever I was in these games, we just lost. And I think those moments are what really buy in. And I think that's what an NFL coach is. Like an NFL head coach, it's not about, I know everybody talks about motivation. Like when you're in the NFL and you're making millions of dollars and your contracts aren't guaranteed, your motivation each day is to still be in the NFL. Like that is what gets you going. Now, it changed a little bit for guys that are making, the crazy amount of money. Then, they can choose to show up when they want, and that's what you got to fight against. But it's how do I give my team the slightest edge in so many different situational football? How do I make sure we have that? Or do I call a timeout at the right time? If I'm an offensive or defensive guy, am I drawing up something or me and the staff going over something in a key time that if we're able to pull it out? Am I coming up with schemes to go into a game that might not be perfect, but it gives us a slight edge and buys us enough time to go win a football game? That's where we see head coaches that are really good, and I think that's what matters. And I think Ben Johnson is showing up. We've seen Dan Quinn do that in Washington in just a year, come in and change that whole organization with what he does. And I think we're now seeing that kind of slowly happen in Chicago. But we got to be careful, right? When Mike McDaniel got in to Miami, everyone was like, we're seeing it, the culture's changing, blah, blah, blah. You can see the way the guys are buying in. And now each week it's like, is Mike McDaniel going to be? So these things happen, but it's like, how can you show up and do it consistently week after week, year after year, just like the players have to do in the NFL, coaches have to do the same thing.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.